Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and I'm going to be guiding you in a loving kindness meditation session. If you'd like to join along for this meditation, it's going to help you eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike towards other beings. It can even help you eliminate negative self-talk if you have kind of degrading or speech towards yourself where you're being diminishing and degrading to this being who you are. The loving kindness meditation will help you to clean that up out of your mind so that you can be loving and kind with all beings, including this being who you are. So the way that we do this is we start with some chanting to ease down into the meditation. I'm then going to guide you in some breathing mindfulness meditation. There'll be a period of time where it's quiet after that guidance. Then I'm going to come back in with some guidance for loving kindness meditation. Then we're going to go back to the breathing mindfulness meditation, and then we're going to come out with the chanting. And usually what I do at that point is just open up to any and all questions that students might have related to the path to enlightenment. You'll be able to ask questions whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. So welcome to all of you guys, and you're welcome to pull up a meditation cushion or a chair or a bench or whatever it is that you use in order to meditate and join right in. I'll just be guiding you in the meditation, and then we'll come back in after that when we end the meditation with the chanting, and then we'll start our class from there. So welcome to all of you guys. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Otang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅgho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanam Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Close the eyes and just start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you'd like to just establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with more guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Repeat these affirmations in the mind on the out breath. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May mom and dad be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May my family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers all be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May all those who have harmed me be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who have harmed me be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all beings, wherever they reside, be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava พุทธังมาควันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมาควตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโหโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys who are joining for our class today. As I mentioned, what I do on Wednesdays is I do a guided meditation with you guys and then just open up to any and all questions that you guys might have. If there's any questions that you guys have related to the path to enlightenment, you can put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom, unmute your microphone, and let me know that you have a question. Then I'll be able to help you with any questions that you might have. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Okay, it looks like Leo has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, David. Right. My first question is about visualization. How much can I work with visualization? I give you some examples. Is it helpful training? Is it a helpful training if I envision that, for example, I come to my home where someone will scream at me? So I'm prepared if something like that would happen. Or other example, if I'm afraid of another person, or if I'm afraid that another person is angry at me, I envision that to get comfortable. Or I envision that I come to the nurse internship environment. I will be in a few days from now, and some employees and patients are unfriendly. Is that so putting the mind in the situation it doesn't want to be in, but I do it by visualization. And yeah, when the situations really occur in life, I can remain calm and steady.
Yeah, there's no harm for you to do that. That can surely help the mind. How much of it you do is up to you, but what you described would be just fine. It would help your mind.
Okay, nice. Yeah, because I mostly heard about doing this or when situations occur, right? Where I put myself in the real life situation, with spiders, for example. But I never heard about this visualization thing, because I think you never really often teach that, right? Is there a reason for that? Why you never mention this way?
I teach this in the various classes and courses and retreats that I share. Maybe you just haven't been participating in those. I've also included it in the book, the first volume. You'll see it in there.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So I could, like, every day I could do this kind of visualization and it will help my mind.
Yeah, but eventually when you get rid of your cravings, desires, attachments, you won't need to do it anymore. So it's not like you have to do it every single day, because, eventually if you do so much of this, your day is full of all these kinds of things. You're going to need to do other things. So what you do is, where you're having a really hard time with a particular craving, desire, attachment, you can do these kinds of things.
Okay, nice. Yeah, thank you. Then I wanted to ask, yeah, when we are complacent, you teach us that we should bring in the enlightenment factors of investigation, energy, and joy. The enlightenment factor of joy. I would like to ask you, how is it possible to bring in this factor, because it's unconditioned factor, right? Isn't it coming by itself, or how can I produce it? Yeah.
For a mental state to be unconditioned doesn't mean that it's produced by itself. That's not what unconditioned means. What unconditioned means is that there's no condition that's creating it. So by the time you fully cultivate the mind with the unconditioned mental states that you need to experience enlightenment, those mental states will just be permeating the mind, and they'll be there consistently all throughout your day. But in order to get to that point, you're going to need to apply effort to arise them. You're going to need to apply energy to bring them into the mind. So for example, the unconditioned joy is where the mind is glad and uplifted, where it's cheerful and it's bright and it's radiant. So wherever you notice that the mind is dull and lethargic, for example, you would like to bring in this brightness and this uplifted mind and maintain the mind there. And as you do, over a long-term consistent period of time, the mind will just always stay there. It'll just always be bright and radiant, joyful and cheerful, based in unconditioned gladness, where there's no condition that's creating it. But you're going to need to lift the mind up into that in order for it to be able to then, kind of permeate in the mind long term. And it's not going to happen just naturally by itself.
Okay. Because when I do, for example, some meditation, loving kindness meditation, I often, a few days ago, I often had that coming, this unconditioned joy was coming into the mind. Mm-hmm. And I thought, isn't this a condition because of doing loving kindness meditation and doing this affirmations or this? Yeah, isn't that conditioned?
No.
Conditioned?
No, what's actually happening is, because you're eliminating the anger, hatred, and ill will through practicing loving kindness meditation, by getting rid of that pollution, that's where the unconditioned joy can then come into the mind and be experienced in the mind.
Okay. And I realized that I have, for some days now, I have this unconditional joy shining through. So now I try to maintain it, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But I cannot cut it off. And let it go. It's also not possible.
It's not possible. Sorry. I thought you were done.
How I do the maintaining it. I mean, yeah.
The way that you maintain it is, it's that analogy that I give, where you have the piece of wood and you have the steel and you grind it back and forth. And when the steel rod pops out, you bring it back into the groove. I talk about this with concentration, but it's the same thing with all these unconditioned mental states. That what you're doing is you're getting this loving kindness, this compassion, this sympathetic joy, this equanimity, this unconditioned joy. You're getting the mind to get in this deeper and deeper groove where it's just always there. But whenever you see that it pops out and now it's experiencing conditional pleasant feelings, or conditional painful feelings, or conditional neither painful nor pleasant feelings, you cut those off, let them go, and bring the mind back to the unconditioned mental qualities.
And when I bring the mind back to the unconditioned qualities, is my focus on the unconditioned qualities, or is it just whatever I'm doing, right?
Yeah,
I walk, I talk.
it's just whatever you're doing, because those unconditioned mental qualities, there's nothing that's producing them. So what you're doing is you're just observant of the mind with your mindfulness. And as you notice and you have awareness that the mind is experiencing any conditional experiences or any conditional feelings, you cut those off, let them go, and you bring the mind back to the middle where those qualities of enlightenment are there. And now you just maintain it there, but you focus on whatever it is that you're doing, like washing dishes or what have you. You don't need to focus on the unconditioned joy because it'll just be there.
Okay. And it's also with the ego, right? I think the ego sometimes can come up, and I think it's dangerous, right? So cut them off right away. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the mental objects that is hindering you from experiencing the unconditioned joy in the energy and the loving kindness and all the other mental qualities. Is the ego is one of the things that is doing that. So that's why your mindfulness has 4 foundations: that you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. And you need to know what the mental objects are and what the symptoms of them are, so that when they're arising in the mind, you can notice that and then cut them off and let them go. Personal existence view and conceit, which comprise the ego, that is just one of the things that you're looking for and cutting off. One is the personal existence view, and 2 is the conceit, but you also need to be looking out for doubt, wrong behavior and observances, sensual desire, ill will, desire for form, desire for formless, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance or unknowing of true reality. Those are all mental objects that you need to develop mindfulness or awareness of mind of, so that when they're arising, you spot it and then you cut it off as soon as possible. Because the longer you allow the mind to dwell in any of those conditional experiences, even something as simple as shyness or anger, frustration, if you allow the mind to dwell in any of that stuff, the mind stays wired that way. So you need to have your mindfulness really well established, so that as soon as you see anything related to the bodily sensations, which is the arising of discontentedness, the feelings, the condition of the mind, or mental objects, you cut that off and let it go right away.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Can I ask a few more questions?
Yeah, Paul's waiting, but if you have some more, I know you have a personal guidance session scheduled here coming up soon. But feel free to ask what questions you have, but maybe you also be aware that you have that session scheduled, and then Paul's got some questions too.
Okay. I do 2 more and then, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, then maybe it's a silly question, but I wanted to ask, what do you think, how structured should we approach our mind in situations we don't want to be in? How important is a structured, consistent reputation of the plan we put together to put the mind in a situation we don't want to be in over and over and again? Would you say it's really important? Because what I remember is here that is, if I have a craving, I write it maybe down, or I have a craving to sit in the train by my own, for example. Then I know, okay, I should put myself in a situation where I doesn't want to be in, so I sit in a place where 4 people sit. But sometimes I forget it maybe, and I do it maybe a month later, right? But is it maybe, would you say there's a consistent, structured plan very important?
It's not going to be exactly the same for every person or as you're going forward. You just need to do it when the mind's ready to do that. First, you need to have the Eightfold Path well underway for multiple months before you do those kinds of things. But then as you're doing those things, it's not like there's this rigid schedule, this permanent schedule that every person is going to follow. Because you're not going to necessarily be in those situations or have the opportunity for those situations on a certain schedule. But you just need to be attentive to the mind. And when you're noticing that the mind is having discontentedness about any particular situation, and you're noticing the cravings, desires, attachments, then attend to the mind and make sure that you're putting it in those situations so that you can train your mind to eliminate the craving.
Okay, thank you. Then you recommended once to look at the Eightfold Path 2 to 3 times a week. What I wanted to ask is it, if someone, for example, if someone already knows the Eightfold Path intellectually, would you still recommend them to do that? Or is it more about reflecting, maybe? Or yeah.
If they know the Eightfold Path intellectually and they can essentially recall it and explain it, then they understand it intellectually. No need to go back to looking at it on written form. Now it's a matter of dialing it in your practice so that in your day-to-day life, you're actually practicing it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. That's for now. I have more questions. I could ask them after Paul, but yeah.
Okay. We'll move over to Paul. All right. Thank you, Leo. So, Paul, go ahead with any questions that you have.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, David.
Hello.
I'm at home in recovery from my surgery that I had a couple of days ago for, it was cancer related, and I think I might have mentioned it to you. I know you don't forget anything, so you're probably aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can barely remember what I did 2 days ago, but at any rate, and so I wasn't even going to join today because I'm pretty screwed up from it, they've given me painkillers and stuff, so I can't really even breathe mindfully very well under these conditions, but it's going to improve. And it's not a terminal type of cancer, so I'll recover over time, I expect. But what had occurred to me as a question is, for one who's become fully enlightened, how do they feel? Because being fully enlightened doesn't protect you from terminal diseases like cancer and Lou Gehrig's and all the other ones in the list. How does a fully enlightened person deal with that situation?
Yeah, so whenever there's any kind of sickness in the body, an enlightened being understands that it's impermanent and that it's not permanent, and they understand that this body is impermanent. So there's no discontentedness. There's no stress or anxiety. There's no fear. There's no worry. There's no, oh my gosh, I wish I wasn't sick. And gosh, I don't want to be laying here in the bed. I want to be outside having fun. There's none of that. It's just like, okay, this body's sick, and let me just make some wise decisions to try to regain as much health as you can, realizing that, this body is going to be sick. Because you're right, that no matter how enlightened you are, there's 5 unattainable things, which is you can't attain, permanent health. You can't attain permanent youthfulness, permanent life. You will experience loss and destruction as well. Those things are happening because of impermanence. So even though an enlightened being is experiencing the peace and joy in their mind, and they've purified their mind, they're still experiencing these things in day-to-day life, but they're just not reacting to them the way that the unenlightened mind reacts to it. In the unenlightened state, when the body's sick, the mind craves permanent health. So not only do you experience the physical pain of the sickness, but you experience the mental anguish along with it. An enlightened being, all they experience is the physical pain, and it's very minimal. It's interesting when you get rid of craving permanent health and you're comfortable with the impermanent nature of the body, you'll see how probably a good 90% of the pain that you experience during any particular situation was all in the mind, because the pain that you experience in the enlightened mental state of the physical body is very muted and very minimal compared to what you experience in the unenlightened state. So all you need to do is just understand that whatever you're experiencing is impermanent, and what you would be wise to do is make decisions that are going to get you back to health, whether that's eating certain foods whether that's getting up out of the bed, whether that's exercising the body and the mind, whatever it is that the doctors are sharing that they suggest that you do, you would like to consider those things and figure out how to implement those things, and maybe even do some research on your own to see what other kinds of things that you could be doing, whether it's food wise or exercise or getting up, moving around, fresh air, reading books, things like this to stay active and attentive to the mind. And whenever you see the mind craving and longing, yearning for permanent health, cut that off and let it go, and realize that it's not possible, that this is where the body is right now, and you just need to make some wise decisions to get it back to health. And then also where you see the mind longing and yearning and craving, maybe for certain activities that you used to once do that you can't do for a period of time, you're going to need to restrain the mind on those situations too, is cut that kind of craving off. Or if you have a craving to go out and be with your friends, and right now you're not able to do that, you're going to need to cut that off. So sickness is like a really challenging time for people, not just because the body is ill and it's experiencing that impermanence, but also you're experiencing the impermanence of not being able to do your same activities or see the same people, do the same things. You're experiencing all of that impermanence too, because you're staying indoors and you can't be involved in any of those things. So wherever you see the mind's craving come up related to all of those things, you're going to need to cut that off and let it go. And then depending on, what your doctor's suggesting for you, you might even have certain dietary restrictions that you can't eat certain things that you used to once eat. And now you have cravings for those things that can cause the mind to be discontent. So this is actually, when the body is sick, a wonderful time to train the mind and restrain it from its cravings. You can make so much progress during this time.
What I've noticed, though, just in today's experience, it's my first attempt at meditation since the operation on Monday, because I just got home, is I'm not really capable of meditating like I did before because of the pain. And, that's quite a distraction. It's one thing to meditate when you're healthy and without pain, and it's quite another thing to do when you're in pain.
Yeah, this is actually good progress for you, right? Because your mind's going to crave that permanent meditation that you had before, and now your meditation is different, and there's some pain involved there. And this is actually going to help your mind to eliminate its craving for permanent health, that you do meditate when the body is sick and ill. And maybe you can't do it as long, maybe you're not breathing the same way, just like someone might have to learn how to walk all over again if they have a stroke or something like that. It's the same thing when you're injured like this. You're going to need to build back up to all of those things. 6 years ago, I had a motorbike accident where I cracked my rib and I couldn't chant and I couldn't really breathe very deeply in order to meditate. So I had to modify my meditation, where I was meditating for shorter periods of time. My breath was more shallow, these kinds of things. So this is like really good, again, for the mind to realize that even your meditation practice is impermanent and you can't be attached to meditating in any one particular way. And you just gradually build up your practice again. Now with the body being sick, you just gradually build it up from here, just like you're learning to walk or talk all over again.
Okay, well, that's helpful, because that's exactly what's happening right now. But it's early days. I can't breathe deeply on my current circumstances, so that makes me think that I'm kind of wasting my time to try at this point. But you would not, of course, recommend me not to continue, so I know that.
Yeah.
I had another question that a little deeper is. When somebody becomes fully enlightened, can they ever fall out of that? Is it like an irreversible thing? Like when you attain enlightenment, is it possible to fall out of that state? Just curious, is that a possibility?
It's impossible. Once the mind is fully purified, there's no way for it to become polluted ever again, because
But you were saying that you have to never stop your practice even when you become enlightened. I think you said because you have to keep working to stay in that state. Because if you stop, you can fall back. No,
not once the mind.
I guess I misheard that.
Not once the mind's enlightened. When you're in the jhanas, that is true. I do teach people that never convince yourself that you're enlightened and just always practice the teachings. Because as you're getting into that second and third stage of enlightenment, there's a lot of peacefulness in your mind. You might even go 2, 3, 4, even 6 months without any discontentedness whatsoever. And if you think that you're enlightened and you convince yourself you're enlightened, you're going to miss that 30 seconds of discontentedness that pops into your mind once every 6 months. You're going to miss it and you're going to avoid it. And then you're not going to do the work that you need to do to extinguish that craving so that you can actually experience enlightenment. So I teach people never convince themselves that they're enlightened and just always and forever practice the teachings. And that's what you would do anyway. As an enlightened being, you're just always going to be practicing the teachings. But once your mind is enlightened, your mind can't regress backwards from there. In fact, in each one of those stages of enlightenment, your mind won't regress backwards. Once you're in the first, second, third, or fourth stage, your mind won't regress backwards. But in the jhanas, you will be able to regress. If you don't continue to stay consistent with your practice, your mind will regress backwards.
So there's the jhanas, and then there's what are you talking about where you're not able to regress?
The 4 stages of enlightenment.
Even when you just get to the first stage, you can't regress?
Exactly. You won't regress backwards out of that stage of enlightenment, because by that point, you would have eliminated the first 3 fetters. And once you eliminate a fetter, it can't come back into the mind. It's not possible.
I didn't realize, because that was what I was going to say is you were saying everything's impermanent except for enlightenment. And I thought to myself, well, that's impermanent because you can fall out of it. But you're saying that you can never fall out of it. Even if you're only in the first stage of it, you can never go back.
Exactly. The mind won't go back, because what the Buddha teaches is that all conditioned objects are impermanent. They will arise, change, and fade away because they're conditional. But unconditioned objects, they do not arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. So by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is unconditioned. It's been completely purified. All the conditions that were producing discontentedness have been eliminated. So you no longer experience an arising, changing, and fading away. You're only experiencing unconditioned mental qualities that are permanent in your mind.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, and I'll share something with you on the training side. I once used to practice Kung Fu. I did it once when I was 9 years old, and then later in life as an early adult, I practiced Shaolin Kung Fu and then Wushu Kung Fu. And I was studying with some teachers who were classmates of Jackie Chan and Jet Li, those famous Kung Fu people. And they were training us to do Kung Fu. And, we used to have these different exercises where we would kick with one leg and go down the line and kick with the other leg and go down the line. We would just alternate between left and right kicks and left and right punches and stuff like this. And it was really mainly for the mind and for the body. We never sparred or anything like that. But nonetheless, as we trained, there were times where we would be pushing ourselves so far that we would pull a muscle, like a leg muscle in our right leg. And what the instructors would have us do is they say, okay, your right leg, you have a pulled muscle, just go down the line and kick with your left leg. Don't kick with the right leg like you normally kick left, right, left, right. Now just go down and do left, 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 left. So when we were training, no matter what was going on with the body, they would still have us train. And that's what I'm suggesting for you too, because that's what you need. Because if you slack off and you don't make any attempts, you'll, really fall off the deep end. So if you can still be making attempts, even if it's 1 minute of meditation, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, it's okay. Just do that and slowly build it up from there.
Yeah, that's what I have to do. I can't let this stop me from progressing.
Yep.
I am wondering though how you can know what it's like to be enlightened under those circumstances if you've never been. Meaning, I know you've given the example of the motorbike and so on, but the thing is, you've not been faced with, let's say, a terminal illness, and you're kind of speculating as to how an enlightened being would react to that, not having done it yourself, not having experienced it yourself. Is that a fair statement, or?
I haven't experienced a terminal illness, but I've experienced plenty of things that I understand how an enlightened being's mind would function in those situations. An enlightened being wouldn't react in these situations. They would just respond to it because it's the same exact thing, whether it's a terminal illness or whether it's a temporary sickness of the body. The mind functions the same way regardless. It's not anything other than impermanence. That's the way the enlightened mind's going to look at it, whether it's a terminal illness or whether it's a illness that's going to last for 6 months or 2 months or 1 week. The enlightened mind's going to function exactly the same way in all those situations. That's why I can tell you how an enlightened being will function in those situations.
In spite of the pain and discomfort, they would still power through it to the very end. Yeah. They would never give up their enlightenment because it's impossible. But I'm just saying, there's nothing, including a lot of pain and suffering, or given circumstances of, being in a situation where, there's a government dictatorship and there's, all sorts of injustices, and then there's torture and, all the horrible things that can happen in life. In spite of that, an enlightened being would just power through that, would never regress.
Correct. Their mind would never be shaken up regardless of what's going on around them. It's just literally impossible for it to occur.
Well, you're convincing, but I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, don't think about it. Just experience it. Just keep training your mind, and then you can know for yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Enough for today.
All right. Be well. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Let me see if we have any other questions anywhere. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So I'm going to end here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of classes and courses and retreats and the ability for you to get help. Coming up this Saturday, I have the Pali Canon and English study group. On Sunday, we're going to be in chapter 20 of our book in the group learning program. We're going to be learning about animal to human, the evolution of our consciousness. This is where I'm going to help you to understand how the mind in the unenlightened human state functions very much like an animal. And what you're doing is you're shedding these animalistic instincts. And I'm going to be able to help you to be able to see that. And it's kind of like a first glimpse into the cycle of rebirth for students who have been learning with the group learning program. So if you'd like to join for that, you're more than welcome to. And then, of course, next Wednesday, I'll be doing breathing mindfulness meditation with students and opening up to any and all questions that you have. So thank you again for joining, and perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Take care, and be well. Sawadee-ka. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.